Hi, and welcome back to Military Law Talks. So today's video is on the federal government hiring freeze. Recently, President Trump signed another presidential memorandum extending the federal hiring freeze. So to walk back, let's explain how we got here. Okay, so on January 20th, the day that Donald Trump was sworn into office, he also signed several executive orders. And one of those executive orders, well, I think it was technically an executive memorandum, it put forth a federal hiring freeze. And so let's take a look at that original memorandum. Okay, so it was released on January 20th, signed on January 20th. It was a presidential action. You can find it on whitehouse.gov. But it said that there was a hiring freeze on federal civilian employees applied throughout the executive branch. And so part of that freeze was that no federal civilian position that was vacant at noon on January 20th, so when Donald Trump was sworn in, could be filled. And no new positions could be created except unless there's an exception, either within this memorandum or granted an exception to this. And so it says that it applies to all federal executive agencies, but it does not apply to military personnel or positions relating to immigration enforcement, national security, or public safety. And so keep those in mind. And then it talks about, that there should be a plan within 90 days, and government agencies should seek to have efficient use of existing personnel. So existing personnel could potentially be put in different positions, given like temporary assignments to help kind of fill these gaps. And then the same day, there was another executive order that was signed. And this is sharing the wrong one. So let's take that one down. Add. So this executive order was also signed on January 20th, and that was reforming the federal government hiring process and restoring merit. So essentially, it didn't really change anything. It just was signaling and telling the executive branch, like, hey, basically just follow the law that has been in place. Hire people based on merit, which has been a requirement of federal civilian workforce for 70 years or so. And you shouldn't discriminate against individuals, either giving preferential treatment or not, or discriminatory treatment based on a protected class, Title VII. Essentially just follow the law. And part of this executive order required federal government agencies to issue a hiring plan within 6 months. And so that part of this executive order lays out what that plan should look like. And so it provides all these requirements for that plan. And so I want you to keep these things in mind, because it'll help make sense of the most recent executive order that was signed. And so the agencies, right, they need to come up with this plan, submit it to OPM, that's the government's HR, the Office of Personnel Management, and then report back. And so there was also another executive order that was signed that is referenced in this most recent extension of the hiring freeze. So let me go ahead and share that one as well. So this was implementing the workforce optimization initiative. And so this is to ensure that agencies use their DOGE team that's within the agency to remember that plan that they have to implement, that they have to come up with in the 6 months, use the DOGE team to come up with that plan. And so these executive orders kind of work together. Also, this executive order directed heads of agency to prepare for RIFs. Remember, reduction in forces. I've done a couple of videos talking about RIFs, and I'll do another video focused just on RIFs in the future. But this is essentially, hey, we're going to reduce the workforce. We're just going to do like a straight line cut. It's not individual employees that we're targeting to terminate, it's positions. We are going to look to eliminate positions. Specifically, this executive order said eliminate all the positions that have to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so those positions should be eliminated. And I know some government agencies have just kind of redesignated and renamed, given people different titles, but the same employees. And so that would be undermining this executive order. And so that was this implementation executive order. And then now there's the most recent executive order extending the hiring freeze. Okay, let's get that one up. All right, so this was signed recently on April 17th. So it extended the hiring freeze. So those executive orders that I just went over are all cited here in this executive order. So it's essentially that same hiring freeze that was implemented on January 20th, just being extended to now July 15th, 2025. And so it's essentially extending that hiring freeze out to the date when these executive agencies, the agency heads, should have that 120-day plan, that plan that they're supposed to be done within the 120 days to OPM. And so it extends that hiring freeze out to July. And so, but remember that initial hiring freeze said that it will does not include military personnel, immigration enforcement, national security, or public safety. So those same class-wide positions are exempted from this hiring freeze. So some government agencies had kind of minimal disruption. Little to no of their positions were affected by this hiring freeze, right? So ICE, or Department of Homeland Security, probably a lot of their positions were exempted by this, but not necessarily military departments. Obviously, their military members, their uniformed military members were unaffected, but their civilian workforce absolutely have been affected. And I've had several videos on the DoD workforce, particularly with the voluntary measures that the DoD is undertaking to reduce the size of the civilian workforce. And so what does this mean practicality? This means particularly, I'm just going to focus in on the DoD. So the DoD, Pete Hegseth, the SecDef, has signaled, and he's had released videos to this extent, and I've covered this on other previous videos, that he wants to reduce the federal civilian DoD workforce by 5 to 8%. And subsequently, he's released information signaling that he would like to reduce that workforce through voluntary measures before resorting to involuntary measures. And so the DoD has offered the Deferred Resignation Program, the DRP, once through OPM. It was offered through the whole federal government and kind of hand in hand to this federal hiring freeze, right? So if your employees are saying that they're going to resign, they're still occupying that slot. And so their position can't be rehired until they formally resign. And then the DoD offered that DRP again. So there's DRP Part 2 for the DoD. And I believe the IRS also offered it twice. And so essentially, not only are those positions still occupied, so they can't be backfilled, you can't hire against those authorizations of those employees that are still occupying those positions until their resignation or retirement is effective. But with the hiring freeze, you can't hire anyone else, or maybe create a new position that would assume the duties of those employees. And so through these different measures, the federal government is taking steps to reduce the size of its civilian workforce, particularly the DoD, reducing the size of its civilian workforce, though potentially be increasing the size of the military workforce, because again, none of these attrition tools or the hiring freeze or any of the acts that SecDef has taken would reduce the size of uniformed military members. He's actually signaled that likely they will increase in size. Now, will kind of departments maybe will something like BRAC happen? Potentially. BRAC is the base realignment and consolidation that happened in the 90s, where entire units were switched and either gotten rid of or realigned, put at a different location. And so could we see that again? Potentially. We'll see. The budget, the DoD should have already submitted its new budget for the next fiscal year to Congress. That should be working through the budgeting process, and we'll see. BRAC happened by congressional act, and so I think it would take a congressional act to do a major realignment. Now, could the DoD do an internal realignment that's a lot smaller than the major realignments that we've seen? Yeah, potentially. And so we'll see what happens in the future, but I'll definitely be keeping up on this space. And so continue to watch my videos to get more information about the coming changes, the changes that are happening to not only the federal government, but the DoD specifically. So if you like my content, make sure you like, share, and subscribe subscribe to my channel. So I have a new channel. Please help spread the word. So subscribe and like the video, comment down below. It helps with the algorithm. It helps get this message out there. Share this video to other people who you think may resonate with the content. And if you have any ideas for future content, put that in the comments below as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.